This is where my son David's funeral service was held. This auditorium was absolutely packed. Standing room only. People lined the walls all in the aisleway. It was really, really overwhelming to see that many people, to think that David touched that many people.
What up, everybody? It's your boy Dave Carter from Lavish Habits Unlimited. I have things I want to accomplish today, tomorrow, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, and I have confidence in myself. Once I accomplish my goals, I'll move on to the next.
David was 39 when he was killed. He was a fun-loving person, serious but fun-loving. Tall, handsome, athletic.
David was my best friend. David was the person I would call for any advice. He took pride in everything that he did. David worked very, very hard. He had a full-time job at a manufacturing plant, and on the side, he started his own clothing line called Lavish Habits Unlimited.
When David and I met, we were 9 years old. David was a best friend to me. He was someone that I could trust, but we definitely always kept it a platonic relationship. We had a boundary there. David always, wanted to grow up and have a family and be married. He was always a very stand-up guy, and once he became a father, it upped a level.
Everything was geared around his son. He was a very involved father with DJ.
The relationship with me and my dad, I would say we were like best friends. We were always doing something together. Our bond was just something that you just couldn't break.
I know I liked David when I first seen him. He was funny. He just made me laugh. We just started going out and having a good time. I was 19. He must have just turned 20. When DJ was born, David was excited. I don't even think he got a good look at DJ before he ran out in the hallways just screaming, "I got a boy." David and I were off and on from 2000 to 2014, but we remained close as co-parents for DJ.
After that, David had lots of female friends. He definitely had his share of relationships and girlfriends. Then, in the middle of March of 2018, David walked up with this young lady that I had never seen before. He came up, he introduced her. This is my friend Tammy. Tammy and David had went to high school together. They reconnected at a mutual friend's birthday party, which eventually turned into a relationship. Tammy worked for the Detroit Medical Center. Also, Tammy was a travel agent, and she did tell me that she had twins. She had a son and a daughter who were 18 at the time.
Tammy and I met in high school. David, Tammy, and I were all in the same graduating class. Her personality in high school was very bubbly. At that time, she was pretty solid as a friend. But after high school, a lot of us went our separate ways. Around March of 2018, I found out that David and Tammy were dating, and it was a brow raiser, but as friends, we want the best for each other. And if David was happy, I was happy for him.
They were spending a lot of time together, like being with each other like every day, as if like you thought like, okay, maybe this is probably the one that my dad is going to be with and marry.
I could say that David seemed happy. I believe they had fun. I believe they had a good time within them 6 months that they had been together. But she was very obsessive over David.
I don't try to get too involved with my children's affairs of the heart, but when we did have a gathering, she would watch David. You know, if he was talking to somebody else, she would keep an eye on him.
Every day we saw David, we saw Tammy. She wasn't far behind. I didn't care for Tammy from the moment I met her. Everybody thought, oh, you the crazy little sister, you know, you don't like nobody. And I'm like, well, that very well may be, but I know I don't like her.
On September 30th, it was just our average normal Sunday. DJ was preparing to go to his dad's house for the evening. And then I got a text message from David saying, I don't feel good. I'm not sure what's wrong. And, I don't think that DJ should come over here tonight.
I tried to text him myself. So getting replies back from my dad saying he was sick and very sick to where he didn't want nobody around him.
DJ said, well, I have some stuff at my dad's apartment I need to get. And I said, okay.
I pulled up to my dad's house. I seen Tammy taking out the garbage. I said, hey, whatever. She seen me. And she ran to the apartment door. Ran. And when I got to my dad's house, the door was locked. You'd have thought since she saw me, she'd have left it unlocked. But I had a key. So I went in and she came up to me first, hey, DJ, what's going on? So I asked her, hey, have you seen my charger to my phone, whatever? She said, no, I haven't seen it. And I've noticed my dad's bedroom door was closed, which was odd. And then she closes his bathroom door as well. Thought that was kind of weird. I said, since I'm at my dad's house, let me just, say what's up to him, stuff like that. And she told me nah, he's not here. He went out for a walk. Thought in my head, it's pretty weird. Who's, sick, it's cold outside, who goes for a walk. Didn't make any sense. But I have to make it to my grandmother's house. And I just left.
I've known David for 19 years. We met at a plant, working together for 10, 12 hours a day, and we became real close. Last time I seen Dave was that Thursday. We had to work Sunday. But Dave didn't come to work Sunday. That was just out of the ordinary for Dave to miss double time. When Tuesday came around, Dave ain't been to work in 3 days. I was like, no, something ain't right.
On Tuesday, I got a call. Roger said this is his 3rd day not coming to work. So, can you go by his apartment just to see if he was okay? So I called his phone, went straight to voicemail. Then I called David's girlfriend, Tammy. I said, hey, is David okay? She said, I haven't talked to him since Sunday. So Derek, my husband, and I, we went over to David's apartment.
We see David's cars in the parking lot. We get to the door, knocking on the door. Nobody's coming to the door. So I went to grab the door handle, and you can open the door.
So I started freaking out. Like, why is it open? He always locked this apartment up. At that point, I knew that something wasn't right. So I called my dad, and I called Samia, DJ's mom, as well.
Tasia said, Dad, I got a phone call from David's job. One of his coworkers said that he haven't been to work in 3 or 4 days. And I'm like, what?
We all got to the apartment. I was looking around and I was thinking, David would never leave his apartment like this. Like, he would never ball his sheets up and just stick them in a closet.
We get to David's room, and the bed isn't made. My brother is a neat freak. David would never leave without making a bed. So I look under the bed, and it's a big, huge red stain. And I could tell that the bed had been moved to like cover the stain because it's carpet. And the indentation, you know, from the bed sitting so long, you could tell that it had been moved.
And I pulled up the comforter off the bed, and that's when I seen what appeared to be blood. And at the top of the mattress, there was a hole.
I walked around. There was a hole in the bottom left-hand corner of the closet door. Being a soldier, I knew it was a bullet hole. I realized that, okay, something's wrong here. I told everybody out.
We went to Melvindale Police and filed a missing persons report. We're searching, calling hospitals. I'm calling morgues.
This afternoon, Michigan State Police crime scene investigators were searching for clues near Outer Drive and Allen Road.
Melvindale Police taped off the apartment. They had a front loader out there. They were actively going through the dumpster, you know, checking garbage bags and stuff like this. In the meantime, you know, we just waiting for a word from if anybody found him.
And I got on Facebook. If anybody's seen David, y'all please let me know.
When David Carter didn't show up for work earlier this week, his family sounded the alarm.
Police department and the family are looking for any help they can get from anybody who knows him.
On that Tuesday night, after we saw the stain and the bullet hole, I called Tammy and I said, Tammy, I'm gonna ask you one more time, where's my brother? And she said, Tasia, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I haven't seen him since Sunday. And she showed no concern as to me telling her that he was missing. I said, okay, if I find out you had something to do with my brother and me not being able to find him, we gonna have a whole problem.
Tammy was at work. She just went about her day, just like it was a normal day. She was on social media a few times. She basically was just living a normal life.
It was unbelievable to me for a person that had been with him almost every day for 6 months, for her not to leave work and show up with us and help find David.
She was nowhere to be found. You're his girlfriend. You don't seem to be as worried as everybody else.
An ODOT employee discovered a sleeping bag along the side of I-75.
The Hancock County coroner has ruled the human remains found on I-75 a homicide.
They suspect the victim might have been on the side of the highway for a few days. Investigators are reviewing missing person reports.
Grass mowers from ODOT, Ohio Department of Transportation, had found a sleeping bag in the weeds by the berm of the road off of I-75. Inside the sleeping bag was the dismembered lower half of the body. All I had was a lower torso and legs. It looked to me like this male was either black or biracial. His inseam measured 36 inches. That's a pretty tall person. During the autopsy, we found a very characteristic tattoo on the left upper leg. It was a tattoo of a pit bull with red eyes. That's unusual. So we sent that photograph up to Melvindale, Michigan, which is where there was a missing person.
The chief of police of Melvindale called me and asked me to come down because he had some questions to ask me. It was a tattoo that he was very, very interested in. I told him he had the tattoo of a pit bull on his leg. And I asked the chief, I said, you found him? And he said, yeah. For me being a soldier, death is something that's part of life. It's inevitable. I never thought it would happen to a family member in this manner. Tough. Really, really tough.
I assisted Mr. Carter over to the police department. I'll never forget. It was just so many emotions. So I'm driving back from the police station. I don't want to see Tasia face.
My husband's driving and he pulls up and I see it all over his face. You know, I see it like all over his face, and he gets out and he just grabbed me and he just said, "Boo, he gone." I had no words. Like, I really felt like I had been gut punched.
My concern was his mother. All of the things that I've been through, I've done. There's nothing, I can't think of anything that was harder than telling her that it was our son. She just broke down. It was like everything like drained out of her. Nothing I could do but hold her. So that's all I could do.
I asked my uncle, like, what happened, you know, because I wanted to know. He wouldn't tell me at first. So I'm like, you know, what happened? Like, you have to tell me. Like, it's my dad, you know? And he said, yeah, they found your dad, but they found him chopped up, you know, his body parts chopped up. I just walked away and did not want to look at nobody. I'm literally like on the side of the car, slouched down, sitting on the grass, crying, full of anger and sadness. My father was a person that I looked up to ever since I was born.
I had never felt so numb. The friend and the sister in me wanted to get to the bottom of it. Who did this to you?
I'm putting all my arrows at Tammy because you're the last person that saw him.
I'm like, okay. Tammy is the key. She knows what happened.
A few weeks before David was murdered, he asked my female cousin, "Hey, you want to go to the movies?" So they went to see the movie. My cousin drove. When they returned back to David's apartment, all 4 David tires were slashed. David was like, oh my God. Like, you know, I believe that he knew then that Tammy had did it, that Tammy had slashed his tires, because she must have been mad that he took my cousin to the movies and didn't take her to the movies. Like, who does that?
Angry female, that's how I chalked it up. I just, okay, she mad. She's that type of person, you know.
When a person is jealous and when a person is selfish, there is no measure for what they'll do.
On the Friday night before David disappeared, the whole family was at DJ's football game. That was the last time I saw David, and the last time his sister saw him, last time his son saw him.
David and Tammy were already at the game when me and my husband arrived. David was watching the game.
David was laughing and joking with us and hollering at the game at the same time. We were throwing popcorn and just having a good time at that game. David and Tammy came to the game together, but weren't together at the game.
I asked my brother, are y'all okay? Like, why is she not coming down? And he was like, you know, she could be all right. I just thought maybe they got into an argument, they wasn't talking.
I took a moment and gazed around the stands, and Tammy was looking dead in my face, like straight away in my face, and it just looked like I had saw the devil. It stuck with me to this day. I could still see the look on her face.
I believe my brother David broke it off with Tammy. I believe that night after the football game, whatever they were going through, that was the last straw for him. And he was just like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And she couldn't take it. I believe she was jealous of David's relationship with everyone, with me, with his son, you know, with our parents. I believe she was just ultimately jealous of anybody he had contact with. But I never thought Tammy would be capable of murder. Never.
I think he was trying to figure out how to leave. It was taking him time to totally pull away, but that's because she was so possessive. She knew that Dave wanted to break up, and it sparked a madness about her. It's just, if I can't have him, can't nobody else have him.
I told the police to look into Tammy, but the police didn't tell us anything about what they were doing or what they had found. A few days after we got the news about David, my nephew had his football game.
Head coach asked me, do you need time away from football? I said, nah, because I'm not walking away from that. That's not something that my father would want me to do. The night of the game, it was rocking. Everyone showed me love. Family and friends, they all sat next to each other on the stands. It's like the whole stands were family. There's a quote that my dad told me was, whatever happens, just keep on going, no matter what. So before that game, I told myself that I'm going to play. I'm going to play for him. It's so crazy to say that it wasn't me playing. I really feel like it was him in me that was doing moves that I didn't really knew that I had in me, you know?
During DJ's football game, my dad called me And my dad said, well, I need to tell you something. And he was like, they got her. And I'm like, they got who? And he like, they arrested Tammy.
To find out that Tammy was arrested that night, it lifted everyone up. Like, it brought joy.
We just couldn't believe it. Like, oh my God, like they got her. We got some justice, everybody full of tears and, just happy.
A couple days later, she was released.
The person of interest taken into custody on Friday has been released. That, according to Melvindale Police, confirming that information late tonight. Their investigation still ongoing.
Tammy Williams was brought into Melvindale PD for questioning. There were some interviews conducted. She was released pending more investigation. I'm limited on what I can discuss because I don't want it to hinder our investigation. But what I can tell you is that they didn't have enough at that time to hold her in charge with a crime.
Having to let her go, to me, that was like a kick in the stomach.
They can only hold her for 72 hours. They have to locate the rest of, his remains because they need a cause of death.
New developments tonight in the murder of a Melvindale father.
More of his remains were discovered along I-75 south of Findlay.
They have found another body part off of the same Interstate 75 that the first set was found. They proceeded to send the second set up to us, which was in a little black duffel bag with red straps. And in the bag, there was a human head. And it was wrapped in the small grocery bags with the handles. And one of the grocery bags was tied under his chin. We got the third call that they had found the rest of the remains in a little multicolored suitcase, big bright flowers on it. And inside the suitcase, there was a comforter. And inside the comforter, there was the third set of remains. I had upper torso, 2 arms, 2 hands, all the fingers. You could put the whole body together now. He had a gunshot wound right here, below the earlobe and sort of toward the back. The wound went this way. Exit was at the top of the head. He had a single gunshot wound, very close range, almost near contact. Now I had a cause of death. There was no evidence of defense wounds, no evidence of a struggle, no other evidence of injury anywhere. You have a tall man, 190 pounds, and he puts up no fight. Did he not see the gun coming? Was he asleep? Was he incapacitated somehow? I don't know. Interestingly enough, he had an antihistamine in his bloodstream. That makes you sleepy. I believe for him it was a quick death.
I think that on September 29th, my brother went to bed. Tammy had an extra key to my brother's apartment, and I believe that she went in while my brother was asleep and shot him in the head.
There were texts sent from his phone to make people think that it was him texting, but it was her.
I assumed the texts, in the beginning, I assumed they were from him. because I wouldn't have any other reason to think that they weren't. But when I went back and really read the text, how the text was worded, it wasn't how he would have worded that text.
After he died, I think the person responsible for the death was faced with a huge problem. How do I get rid of a 190-pound, 6'4" man? I can't carry him down the stairs. The lower part of the remains alone weighed 73 pounds. I think the dismemberment in this case was more logistical to move the body. He had been separated by cuts, nothing like a saw. These were, in my opinion, probably nothing more than your average kitchen knife. But it took some time. You cannot separate a body into 3 parts in a very short period of time with instruments like this.
The fact that she could not only shoot her boyfriend in the head, but cut up his body, purchase the items that his body was ultimately found in, and then drive to scatter them along I-75. And then wake up and go to work for the rest of the week. That tells me that she's a psychopath. We just waiting on word for them to go pick up Tammy. We have the memorial, October 27th. Thanksgiving comes, Christmas comes. Then it wasn't until January of 2019 that we found out that October of 2018, Tammy had fled Michigan.
Williams has been on the run since October.
Tamara Renee Williams, and police say she murdered and dismembered her boyfriend in Melvindale.
Tamara, if you're out there, turn yourself in, baby. Can't keep running.
And now a hunt is on, so intense, they've brought on the U.S. Marshals.
U.S. Marshals get cases assigned to us basically for people committed heinous and serious crimes and that are usually on the run for that crime, and we go out and locate them and bring them to justice. This case was extremely brutal because of the nature of it. This person was found in multiple pieces, and it takes a special individual to do that to somebody. This was calculated. This was planned. This was thought out. Tammy is accused with homicide, dismemberment, tampering with evidence, and felony firearm. We're talking about a dangerous woman. The weapon that was used has not been recovered, so she's probably armed and dangerous. I learned quite a bit about Tammy Williams during my investigation. On October 16th, 2018, she was seen in Ann Arbor, Michigan. According to credit card receipts, made a couple cash withdrawals from an ATM, had dinner. I can tell you we have her on camera at the restaurant. And then after her meal, she sat there for quite some time and had some drinks and everything. She went outside, loaded on a rickshaw, and had the rickshaw take her back to a hotel. She then woke up the next morning, the morning of the 17th, went to the train station in Ann Arbor, took an Amtrak train from Ann Arbor to Chicago, loads on a train there to Penn Station, New York, and checks into a hotel called the Neptune Hotel. Nobody's looking for Tammy at this point. When she checked into the hotel, she checked in her name with her driver's license, stayed the night there, and got up the next morning, October 18th. She was seen on camera leaving the hotel, and that's the last time she was seen. Tammy Williams is a black female, 5'5", approximately 180 to 200 pounds. She's currently 42 years old.
On Facebook and on Instagram, Tammy was always like the master of disguise. One day she had long hair, one day she had short hair, one day it was blonde, one day it was brunette.
She could have short braids, she could be wearing wigs. The one thing that's common on her though, she's a huge rose tattoo on her left shoulder that basically goes from the elbow all the way up over the shoulder. That rose bouquet is gonna stand out. It's very distinctive and be pretty difficult to miss, cover up, or remove. But on top of that, let's just say hypothetically, she got it covered. That means there's a tattoo artist out there somewhere that covered that bunch of roses. If Tammy was working a job right now, she was a travel agent. She could have booked your trip to wherever. She could be working at a hospital. She could have taken your blood yesterday. Let's be honest, she's not afraid of blood. It's been a while since I've spoke to any members of her family, but every time I have, it's no idea, haven't heard from her, haven't talked to her. And I personally don't believe that. Somebody is helping her financially and also providing her with a roof, a place to stay. She just did not disappear. Throughout my interviews with many different people, they've all said she's always been one of those girls that needs to have a guy in her life. And that scares me, that this woman is still free after committing this crime and she could hurt somebody else.
I've thought about that plenty of times, of going to my dad's bedroom that Sunday night. Maybe I should have went in there, but maybe it's probably a good decision to not go in there. Because, I don't know, something in me was just saying like, don't go in there. Something probably could have happened to me if I had went in my dad's room.
The hunt is on as the U.S. Marshals put all hands on deck in this worldwide fugitive hunt.
Tammy could be in a new relationship at this point. Maybe she's dating another guy. You know, he could be at risk. Family members of the young father are still praying Tamara will be found to face charges.
At my son David's funeral, many people spoke about him. It was really touching.
Life stay full of happiness, and sometimes life is full of shit.
Yes, it is. And everybody was talking about David and how they knew him, and giving my wife Marie and I, their condolences, and hugging us. Marie, she quite naturally cried through the whole thing, and I felt helpless, trying to console her.
I always say, like, Tammy didn't just kill my brother, she killed my mother too, because our mother was diagnosed with cancer 6 days prior to Tammy murdering David. She was so heartbroken after he was murdered, so she stopped going to her cancer treatment, and my mom passed away.
There is not a day that goes by that I do not think of David. I look at DJ. I start thinking about all the things that he's accomplished, all the things that he's doing, and I say, man, if his dad was here, he'd be so proud.
As of right now, I'm at Eastern Michigan University, playing football, and I'm majoring in business management. I've taken over my dad's clothing business. I'm doing okay, but there are thoughts that get to my head that almost make me want to break down sometimes. Like, wow, I don't have a father no more. If I had a few minutes with my dad right now, I would ask him is he proud of me of where I'm at. And I would tell him that I love him for sure and I miss him.
When David left us, it was like a black hole. Like nothing or no one has been able to fill it. You never know how much light somebody brings into a room until it's no longer there. So it's been dark. I miss the jokes and the laughs. I miss our talks, our fights. I just miss him. I miss everything about him. I have faith that somehow, some way, somebody's gonna see Tammy and she's gonna be caught. It's not gonna bring David back, but it will at least allow us to let him rest in peace.
The investigation began in 2008 when the body of a family man was found carbonized in his car near Grenoble. This is the last husband of Manuela Gonzalez Cano. It's the early morning of October 31st, 2008. A riverman walks his dog, as he does every morning, takes a dirt road towards the Leazer's shores, and there, in a field, he sees a completely carbonized car. He calls Agent Amory. The first investigators set off. The vehicle, let's say, is at about this height. We have the back of the vehicle on this side. In the trunk, we have a dog. Unfortunately, it's dead. And on the back seat, we have a body. The body of a person, which is positioned sitting on the back seat. And the body, unfortunately, is completely deteriorated. For now, in the current state of things, we don't know who it is. There are several hypotheses. The person could have committed suicide and set fire to his vehicle. Or, of course, a criminal hypothesis. We have a person who was put in a vehicle, a dog was put in the trunk, and a person set fire to the car. When we arrive on site, we see the vehicle. The vehicle is carbonized. There's nothing left. There's no more plastic material. There's no more furniture in the seats. We know that there are accelerators that have been used. But ultimately, the start of the fire on the vehicle is impossible to determine. What raises questions about this crime scene to the police when they discover it is the discovery of a body in the back. For them, there's something wrong. The person is sitting on the back seat. A position that may seem strange because it's not a natural position for someone who is alone in his vehicle. Very quickly, in the minutes that follow the discovery of the car and the body and the dog in the trunk of the car, the criminal hypothesis is privileged. Villeurbanne is a fairly quiet commune. It used to be a lot of working-class towns because there were big employers who were paper mills and Lancet. There has never been a big story in the village. It's more of a rural village, quite peaceful. The case had a lot of repercussions. It also stayed engraved in the minds of a lot of people. It affected both the commune and the whole department, and even above. The vehicle is completely calcined. But next to it, we see a demasculation tag which is almost complete. We can read 152B something 38. We just need to look at the vehicle file and we can identify the owner of the vehicle. This vehicle owner is called Daniel Canet. He lives in Les Détrolles in Villeurbanne, which is the 150-meter residential area of the discovery area. The investigators went to see Mr. Canet's address to see if he was there, if it could be him or not. He meets a lady right away. He doesn't know who she is. He asks her to introduce himself. She says her name is Mrs. Canet. The first investigators asked very broad questions to find out where Mr. Kennett is without explaining that we found a body calcined in a car at 150 meters. And then, right away, she tells us about her employer, her husband, what they did the day before, without asking any questions. She could have been more perturbed or more inquisitive about why you came to my house to ask me about my husband. She seemed rather serene about her husband's absence. She explains that he didn't come home. He went out the night before. And I remember that the investigator kept asking questions about him. He didn't want to know. It can happen, but it's not common to have people who have almost a pharmacy at home. In the garage, what do we see? We see a basket for the dog. We see a location where there was a dog. So that reminds us again, we're going to say, the dog that is burned and died in the trunk of the car. So we say to ourselves, we're still getting closer to the person who died. And we say to ourselves, there's little doubt anyway, we're not going to hide. There's little doubt that the person who died, who was burned, it's Mr. Kennett Daniel. Daniel Kennett has not given a sign of life since the night before. These are the statements of Manuela, who obviously becomes immediately, and to their knowledge, the last person to have seen Daniel Kennett alive. She becomes the main suspect. And it is worth questioning. Decision has been made to place her in custody. The day of the discovery, it's the 31st, so she tells us about the day of the 30th. In the morning, her husband made some noise, he hurt his head. He took a drug. At that moment, she says he must have mistaken for a drug. Instead of taking a painkiller, he took a sleeping pill. So all day, he wasn't well. They both decide, after lunch, to go visit Manuela's parents, about 50 kilometers away. She explains that she's the one who's driving, that he's sleeping in the car. She's even going to sleep so much that when she gets to her parents' house, she's going to go up to her parents' house, but let him sleep in the car. And then around 8 p.m., 9 p.m., they come back home. There, a dispute would have taken place in the couple. She says her husband insisted on leaving. He had left on his own, and then she went to bed, without worrying whether he had come back or not. And the next morning, when she woke up, not seeing him, she thought he had gone to work. We did barely a few hours of surveillance, and then a doctor arrived, who was there for the medical examination of surveillance. Very curiously, while she had responded in a completely normal way at the end of the medical examination, it seems that the doctor considers that, psychologically, she is no longer able to endure this measure of constraint. The psychiatrist says she is not in condition. She is shocked. So what do we do? Well, in the end, we don't have a choice. We meet with the prosecutor of the Republic, and we stop the surveillance. She is taken to the Grenoble Hospital Center for Psychiatric Services. Somehow, we say to ourselves, we are missing something. She is no longer in surveillance, she is in a psychiatric hospital. So we said to ourselves that, in the end, we will have to play with time. Already, we have several things to do. We already have this body to identify. And a few days later, what do we say? The body, completely calcined, is identified as being that of Daniel Kennett. I learned that it is my father who is in this vehicle. It's very, very hard. And it will be all my life. It will be all my life, because they took away what I had most dear. He was Chaudhry Tuatur, in a company in the Grieux Extens Valley. He was very, very admired in his work, because he was someone who was meticulous. Daniel, at the time of his death, he was 58 years old. In the name of long careers, he can retire at the age of 58. He was a guy, first of all, a big worker, and then a guy who had a lot of will. It was a big character. And besides, he had shown it on the rugby field. Daniel is a winner, on the field, in life. He loved rugby, he's the one who put me in rugby. We had a common passion. It was this sport. He loved to help, whether it was the family or a friend or a neighbor. I don't understand why. I don't understand how. I don't understand who. It's a big question mark that just settled on why my father is in this vehicle. Daniel, burned in a car. I put a moment to recover the circuits. I can't imagine what's going on and the way it's going on. He was killed, that's the only possibility. We are waiting for the investigators to put a name on the culprit or the murderer. The toxicological analysts, who are extremely important in this sad case, will reveal that Daniel Cano still has 3 different products, 2 different sleeping pills, and a neuroleptic. Their association can cause more than insomnia, a form of coma. For Daniel Cano, we realize that he takes a hypertension treatment, and in the end he doesn't take any other medicine. Madam Cano has a lot of medical prescriptions, and in these medical prescriptions, what do we find? Imivant, tertian, and zolpidem. That is to say, the 3 drugs found in the blood of Daniel Cano, who died. So we say to ourselves, there's something weird about all this. The investigators' hypothesis will be that Daniel Cano was drugged, that he was probably unconscious when the person who killed him set the car on fire. At this stage of the investigation, the gendarmes think that Manuela is hiding something from them. So they will look a little more at the recent past of the Cano couple and discover that a month before, Daniel had already been about to die and miraculously got out of it. One morning, at 5 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings. Mrs. Gonzalez calls me. She tells me to come quickly. There was a fire, so I dress up in 4th gear. I go home. There was a neighbor, an electrician, Manuela, the dog. Firefighters arrive at the couple's house. Manuela Cano receives the firefighters because she called. She tells them that the room finally burned down. The fire was put out and nothing more. At no time does she talk about her husband. The firefighters go around the house, and by going around the house, finally what they see is on the floor Daniel Cano, who is unconscious despite his burns. So what do the firefighters do? They take the first care and take him to the hospital. And there I see the room that was totally burned. And she tells me that the dog had entered the room and that he had dropped a candle that my dad had left in memory of my grandmother, who had died a month before. I pick him up and take him to the emergency room. He was unrecognizable, he just managed to walk. So it was me who supported him so that he could walk. He could not even speak a word. I had never seen him like that. The hospital will do an analysis, will realize that he is under the influence of sleeping pills. Daniel Cano does not take any medication, and somewhere tonight. Why would he have taken medication? No explanation. We did not have an investigation because the firefighters did their job, and given the version of Mrs. Cano, which was quite plausible, no one was worried. No one asked questions since it could be real. Sometime later, I came back from a training in Luby. I had eaten at their house last night. They were in the living room, and I heard my father say to him, "Listen, don't take me for a fool. I knew there was no candle in this room." You can wonder about the fact that he did not file a complaint. It's very complicated. We were not in their couple. We went for murder for the facts of October 31st, 2008, with an addition and attempt to murder on September 29th, 2008. There is already drugs in the blood of Daniel Cano. There is already a fire. It's extremely disturbing about the way the operating mode. It's a case that seems extremely close and yet involves Manuela Gonzalez directly. You don't have to hide, it's the main piece. In French law, you have to find a mobile phone. You have to have material elements. You have to have a lot of things to prove it's her. The investigators will try to understand what would be the motivation for Manuela Gonzalez to want to kill her husband. There are not many elements at this stage. The first investigations show that the couple seemed to get along pretty well. It's a stable couple, already old. Manuela Gonzalez and Daniel Cano have been living together for 17 years. At the time, he frequently came to us to go to the bar in the center in Brignix. One day, we arrived there and I saw Manuela at the bar. Daniel, of course, frequented the same bar as us and met Manuela regularly. And it's sure that he always had a little look on Manuela. He had a crush on Manuela and he was in love with her. Manuela Gonzalez married Daniel Cano. Each has a child on his side. And finally, life goes on normally. Daniel and Manuela live in a house that Daniel practically built with his own hands. He did everything. He has a touch for everything. He knows how to do everything with his hands. It's a nice little house, very quiet. For me, we had a classic life. 2 children, 2 adults, everyone works. She was a driving school teacher. She was almost a small public figure, but she was part of the landscape. Manuela, I considered her my second mom. She pushed me for my homework, she knew how to educate me. She has always been behind me when I was a child. Everyone depicts an idyllic couple. There was no cloud in the painting. They seemed really in love. We continue our investigations. We do research at the tax level, at the bank level. We said to ourselves, the life of this couple is important. It may be the foundation of the story and the foundation of the murder. Very quickly, the investigators will realize that the problem of money is major. The couple is in financial difficulty. Early 2008, in March, Daniel Cano receives a phone call from a bank advisor who tells him that he and his wife are late on the monthly payment of a loan of 165,000 euros. And that it will be a problem because they will have to seize his house. In a few minutes, Daniel Cano learns that he is a co-loaner of 165,000 euros, which he totally ignored, but that in addition, this loan is deposited on his house, while he would never have agreed to mortgage the house he built with his own hands. It was a rather problematic discovery in the couple that created big arguments between Mrs. Gonzalez and my dad. If Daniel Cano ignored the existence of the most important loan, the mortgage loan, that of 165,000 euros, it is simply because it was not him who had signed the mortgage with the notary. It's another person. It is not his signature on the document that allowed to mortgage the house for the loan. The investigation never determined who this person was who came with Mrs. Manuela Cano to the notary. We could not conceive that we were lying to him on a mortgage loan, that we were mortgaging the house he had built with his own hands. He did not conceive that, and it was not a small amount. He no longer trusted him. I had even heard the word divorce that had come out. Manuela Cano, in the end, what we realize is that in character and in life, we could say that she is a gambler. She loves money, she plays casino, she wins, she loses. And in the end, in a way, it may be the engine of her life. In reality, this loan was made to cover all the debts of Manuela Gonzalez. That is to say that she decided to make an extremely important loan, even if it meant mortgaging her house, to cover all her debts, including all the loans she had made in the name of her daughter, in the name of her sister, to allow her to settle her casino debts. The investigators therefore start looking for elements that come to comfort the mobility of money. We do the study of bank accounts. We realize that a month and a half before the death, we have 2 men's bank accounts, which are somewhat empty, to go to the couple's common account. Later, we have this money that will go from the couple's common account to the ladies' bank accounts. We say to ourselves, there is something that is not normal in bank operations. Already, it is one more element that makes us say that finally, she benefits from the death of her husband. During the investigation, the gendarmes realized that there was a life insurance, that there was a loan that would not be repaid. The house was also insured 100% on each head. So, if Daniel had just died, she would have recovered the entire house. I think the life insurance was 234,000 euros. It started to make a nice sum, and it started to make a sufficient mobile. Manuela would therefore have a mobile to recover the couple's money. Alan, when we talk about mobile, what exactly do we refer to? So, during the investigation, the mobile is the explanation, the intention, the excuse sometimes, which allows to determine the crime we are talking about. This mobile then allows to determine a criminal incrimination. In the penal code, a whole series of reasons, of attenuating or aggravating explanations, which allow to trigger the prosecution. It then allows to determine what is called the quantum of potential punishment. Depending on the incrimination and the decision of the court, one can be sentenced to more or less, even if initially the homicide remains the major element. Do we know the part of the different mobiles in the crimes committed in France? For a long time, it was estimated, only estimated, since we do not have statistical tools, that passion crimes were largely predominant in homicides. And then, when we started to broaden the vision, especially taking into account not only the homicides, but also the attempted homicides, the involuntary beatings, having led to death, the settlement of accounts, what is called homicidity, we realized that perhaps the dimension could change, and that if there was a large part of passion crimes, the purely criminal part had also taken on a dimension that could not be neglected, especially in recent years. A few weeks after the start of their investigation, the gendarmes have a suspect, motionless, but still no evidence. If it is Manuela who killed Daniel, it will be necessary to obtain his confession. For that, the investigators will dig his life, his personality, his past, and they will go from surprise to surprise. As they are in a criminal investigation, they will go back very far in the past of the suspected person. Manuela was born in a Spanish-born family in La Mure, south of Grenoble, which was a mining town, and her father was a miner, by the way. She was born on October 14, 1960, in this family of 8 children, which gives the appearance of a mining family. It is a Spanish-born family where solidarity, human warmth, affection are very marked. She got married. She was still in high school. She was 17 years old. She married the father of her daughter. Manuela was a smiling, welcoming, attentive woman, a beautiful woman, by the way, who attracted attention, and it is a very positive description that was made of her. Manuela's past the investigators, with all the elements they had, they began to look in the past of Mrs. Kennett, and they quickly realized that her former companions had already had health problems, or were dead. When we discover the file of Manuela Gonzalez, then we go back in time, thanks to the investigators and thanks to the investigations that were carried out at the time. We can only be extremely surprised by the number of deaths that make up the course of Manuela Gonzalez, but perhaps, and above all, of the operational mode, which looks blatantly like the murder of Daniel Kennett. In October 1984, Manuela has an adventure with a jeweler, Michel Garcia. He will end up in a coma, in an emergency. Manuela Gonzalez will make the jeweler drink tea, Mr. Garcia. This tea, immediately, the jeweler will find that it is extremely bitter, and in the seconds or minutes that follow, he will fall into a coma. She will take advantage of this coma to steal a check of 80,000 francs from him. The jeweler, Michel Garcia, comes out of the coma after a day. He realizes that he has been stolen. He files a complaint. At the time, Manuela Gonzalez will partially recognize the facts. She will have a lot of trouble. At first, she will change her mind several times. She will recognize the facts while saying, "No, I just gave her a sleeping pill." An expertise was obviously ordered. What was given to her was opium. Manuela recognizes the facts, explaining that she had money problems and that it was the only solution she had found to get it. She is sentenced, a little later, by the court to 2 years in prison with surcease. Following this case with the jeweler, Manuela is in a relationship with a bar owner, Francois Colasso, who has a bar in Brigneux, which is a small commune next to Villeurbanne. Francois Colasso was a complete stranger in Brigneux when he arrived, but he was a nice guy with no history. In 1989, we learned that he was found in his garage, dead, asphyxiated. In the early morning, Manuela Gonzalez discovers, in the garage of their common house, Francois Colasso's body in the car. There is a quick investigation that is made at the time, in search of causes of death. What is noted at the time is that there was a suicide by exhaust gas. That is, the engine of the vehicle turned, he ingested exhaust gases and died. The autopsy on the body of Francois Colasso reveals that he absorbed, before the facts, the Temesta. Manuela Gonzalez will be heard, but the investigation will never go very far. After a few months, the investigation concludes a suicide, even if the victim's family does not really believe it. That was a bit of a surprise, because we did not see a depressive guy or anything, but hey, it can happen. So we did not ask ourselves huge questions. There are deaths that remain mysterious, but it is the word that governs this file. It's a mystery. Very shortly after the death of Francois Colasso, Manuela married Thierry Le Chevalier. We are in April 1991, so Manuela Gonzalez lives with Thierry Le Chevalier. It was April 6, 1991, in the late afternoon. The neighbors saw the smoke coming out. They called us because they knew we were firemen, me and my gendarme. We went upstairs right away. My gendarme opened the closet because he saw the smoke coming out of the closet. This is where we found Mr. Le Chevalier lying down with newspapers over him. It's old, but I still remember it because it marked me a lot. This companion, Thierry Le Chevalier, he found him in a cagibi. There was a fire. And in the blood, once again, the toxicology says that there is Temester in the blood. An investigation is underway because the circumstances are more than strange. Manuela Gonzalez will be heard as part of the investigation into the death of Le Chevalier. She will indicate that she is not there for nothing. Manuela Gonzalez will explain that her companion probably committed suicide. I found it weird because you don't commit suicide like that by locking yourself in a closet and putting newspapers over you. The operating mode of such a suicide immediately questions the investigators. An instruction will be opened for murder. Mrs. Manuela Gonzalez goes to prison for a while, and finally, verifications are made. There is a testimony of a person who will say, at that moment, she could not have killed Thierry Le Chevalier because she was with me. With me, who was her lover. And that person is Daniel Cano. She has an alibi for the evening of the ferries, and this alibi is Daniel Cano, who says that they spent the evening together. After 11 days, she is released, and the instruction will go on in 2 or 3 years, and it will ultimately lead to a non-placement. We have a succession of people who shared the life of Manuela Gonzalez, and in the end, we had a fateful fate. On all the elements that we bring, we always get closer to Mrs. Cano. Indeed, technically, she always has a good answer, but she still leaves the doubt. For Manuela Cano, Francois Colasso committed suicide, as Mr. Le Chevalier committed suicide, as Mr. Cano committed suicide. They all committed suicide, that's it. And when I told her, but it's terrible, this succession like that, she looks at me and she says to me, "Oh, you realize I'm not lucky." What is striking is that she probably was able to manipulate, deceive, seduce, I don't know, the investigators in any case, so that we don't dig any deeper in files that are still extremely curious. We accuse and condemn without proof. That's this file. And we condemn on a past, on appearances, on personalities, which we will say until the end that they are mysterious. But when it is mysterious, precisely, we ask ourselves questions. Mrs. Cano must impress the people around her, as she impressed me myself. She actually had that charisma, that is to say, someone who attracts the eyes, that we listen to, who knows how to grab the attention of the other. We still see someone who is in a strategy. I have doubts about sincerity, because there is a presentation that is a little bit theatrical, if you will. It's really someone extremely complex. We can't get to the bottom of it. I wonder how it could have happened. How can you get involved in something like that? There are 2 people who died. 2, we can think it's accidents, but then 3. Despite these multiple upheavals and suspicions that weighed on her every time, Manuela Gonzalez Cano was never convicted of murder. She remains presumed innocent for all these facts. But in 2008, after the death of Daniel Cano, the gendarmes will this time put everything in place to trap their number 1 suspect. Manuela Cano, she stays a few weeks hospitalized because she arrives at the hospital on October 31st, 2008. From December 3rd or 4th, 2008, she is out. Manuela Cano, well, she relives her life. She sees people again, she continues her visits. So in the end, life goes on. An investigation is somewhere a game of patience. We start at a time, we evolve over time, we bring together elements. Our idea, let's face it, was ultimately to bring back to life Mrs. Manuela Cano. We collect all the technical data. We collect the invoice, phone details. We hear people, we analyze the auditions, and then we try to find out if people are telling the truth. Can we corroborate what people are saying? The very next morning, a phone call was made between Manuela and her family, and the name of Daniel Cano is mentioned as if he had died. This is the first call that Manuela's parents receive. The parents interviewed will say, "We are learning the death of Daniel Cano by the first call this morning." We go to the Cano couple around 9 a.m., and the family is warned before the death. So we say to ourselves, this is not normal. How can the family be aware of the death while we have not yet returned home? We have not even seen Mrs. Manuela Cano. The investigation takes an extremely important turn. For a year and a half, we have gathered a lot of information. We will have to hear Manuela Gonzalez again, resume custody, and if possible, finally get a confession. We decided to interview Manuela Cano on March 23, 2010. Once all the investigations had been carried out, we notified her of her custody rights, and we took custody in the premises of the Grand Nouveau Research Section. Her behavior in custody, she was quite comfortable, neither too stressed nor too relaxed. From the beginning to the end of custody, she stayed right in her boots. She clearly answered our questions without difficulty. She remains in her natural state, and somehow she is convinced, and she wants to convince, that she has nothing to do with the death of her husband. She loves her husband. She says, "I have no interest in killing my husband." And finally, she remains on what she said from the start. It's a dispute between them. He's gone, she's asleep. The next day, he's not there. She doesn't ask any more questions. Despite the elements that the investigators present to her, despite the questions that are asked to her, she remains on her statement of innocence. She does not recognize at any time her involvement in the death of Daniel. She asked the questions again several times, but each time, she maintained her position, whether it was on bank accounts, on the mortgage of the house, on the financial difficulties of the couple. She never wanted to admit it, and for her, she had no reason to kill her husband. She tries to defend herself. She says it's not her. If it's not her, we have to bring a culprit. Despite these denigrations, at the end of her custody, she is presented to the police, put on trial for murder and attempted murder on her husband Daniel Canet, and incarcerated at the Shabari prison. It's hard to say that the person with whom we spent almost 20 years was able to deceive the world so well that she could be as much a benevolent person and as much someone with a dark side. She didn't just betray me, she betrayed the whole world. The trial of Emmanuel Akano opened on April 14, 2014 at the Palais de Justice in Grenoble in front of the Assize Court in Isère. From the beginning of the trial, Emanuela Gonzalez is combative, affirms her innocence, shows a certain confidence that she will be shown in front of the court. She is very determined, she knows her case well, she has prepared it well, she is talkative, she is very cold, and she poses as a victim. She behaves like a person who has done nothing, who does not understand. At the same time, I hate her so much that I see her like a monster. I think this woman is a lie. She herself is a lie. Her life is a lie. The investigative director comes to the audience. I ask him a number of questions by telling him, "Sir, is there evidence of the guilt of Mrs. Canet in this file?" I ask him to explain to me how Mrs. Canet would have set this car on fire. He has no answer. That's why he concludes that there is no evidence. We have no evidence, but we have a lot of presumptions. We have a lot of things that tell us that she was involved and no one else. For me, I have no doubt. We will blame Emanuela, her past. And what is disturbing and revolting is this past that will be the weight of this procedure, a weight that she will never be able to get rid of. And so, this past will be a weight against which she will not be able to fight. If there had not been this past, I estimate that doubt should have taken advantage of Emanuela Canet. The Attorney General, at the end of her request, asked for a sentence of 25 years of criminal exclusion, knowing that she encouraged perpetuity. At the end of the debates in front of the Court of Appeal of Isère, Emanuela Gonzalez will be found guilty of attempted murder and the murder of Daniel Canet, and will be sentenced to 30 years of criminal exclusion. It's a relief. It's a relief to know that justice did its job well. Emanuela was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but she immediately appealed. A few months later, her lawyers will ask her to be released awaiting her second trial. Request accepted. On September 21st, 2015, Emanuela Gonzalez Canet is released from prison under judicial control. Alan, it's surprising, isn't it? It may seem surprising to the general public, but France is a signatory of a European Convention on the Preservation of Human Rights which envisages, for all that is justifiable, a reasonable period of judgment. As for crimes, this period is set at 4 years. The Court of Cassation expanded the interpretation by including the first judgment and the appeal. This explains why, awaiting this new trial, while she has already spent 6 years in detention, she must be released. On May 23, 2016, Emanuela Gonzalez Canet is released on the first day of her trial in the Court of Cassation. Precisely that, the perception, the visibility by the public and, in particular, the court, the jury, of a person who arrives quietly in the morning and settles in the box of the accused rather than going through the judicial transfer, the release from prison, the release from jail, and the transfer. Secondly, this allows a much better preparation, a tranquility in the ability to see his lawyers, to have time and, moreover, to be able to sleep in good conditions, which is quite important in the context of a trial of this type, while, obviously, the nights in prison are generally much more agitated. And we will see that this appeal trial will reserve new surprises. She arrives free, surrounded by her family, the family Praetorian Guard, and blonde. So, blonde, I guess it's to soften the lines of the Black Widow. During the trial, Manuela's family fought behind her. We really felt a form of sacred union to protect her. During the second trial, there is in a certain way a rebound. She asks by the voice of her lawyer the exhumation of the body of the mother of Daniel by explaining that the latter would have left a word in the coffin saying that he was going to join her soon. A way to suggest that he was going to end his stay or that he knew how to threaten. So the opposite says it's a proof that my dad might have wanted to end his stay to join his mother. It was quite hard to hear to ask the same thing to exhumate my grandmother to check that a word was well deposited or not. So it was a hard time for the family. The court will obviously refuse to order the exhumation, which could bring nothing to death. We were quite happy that the exhumation was refused. It was a great relief. The Assize Court of Drone will again Manuela Gonzalez for attempted murder and the murder of Daniel Cano to 30 years in prison. Manuela Cano remains a mystery, but I told the trial that I was a little taken aback by this personality that I had not managed to fully discern. What we do not understand is her psychological functioning. She will fail all the expert psychiatrists and psychologists who will not be able to make her say what she is really. This woman is still a mystery because how can we live with all this is unbelievable. How do I feel 13 years later? Everything is missing. Her calls in the morning, her advice, her kindness, everything is missing. I try on a daily basis to be like her because she was a right person. She loved to do things. She was someone who loved to serve, who was kind, sociable. On a daily basis, I try to be like her. I try to do what she taught me. I will always try to do better so that she is proud. Manuela Gonzalez Cano was born in 2016. She was released. She then filed a request in front of the European Court of Human Rights, which did not work. Either she still claims to be innocent of the murder of her husband,